For this program, Xcode redirect has already been added for you in line 11 of tutorial.cpp. We chose not to remove it because we wish to avoid complicating the tutorial. In future projects, you will not need to use Xcode redirect for input redirection. Do not use Xcode redirect in future projects. Not only that, but because we're using VS Code, we never need Xcode redirect. VS Code does not feature buttons to compile and run your code. For EEx281, you'll instead be compiling and running your code from terminal. To open the terminal, make sure your cursor is in the editing window, then press Ctrl plus backtick. Note that the backtick is not the apostrophe, but rather the #tick that appears on the same key as tilde. So on a regular QWERTY keyboard that you would find in the US, that's going to be to the left of the one key. Okay. You can also click it by clicking on the warning icons in the bottom left corner of the VS Code window. The console also contains a problems window, an output window, and a debug console. For now, we want to be in the terminal window. You can run multiple instances of the terminal at once by clicking the plus sign to generate a new instance that will be added to the drop-down list. So do that here, do it again and again and again. I don't want to waste these, so I'm just gonna remove them. Note that opening a terminal in VS Code will automatically place you at the workspace directory for your project. Clicking the trash can will kill the terminal window that you're currently viewing, so you can click that here. I'm gonna open a new terminal. If your cursor's in the open terminal window, then Ctrl plus backtick will also hide the console/terminal. So like that. We're now going to walk through a coding example that uses a makefile. The makefile is an integral part of each project you'll complete in EEx281. The coding example in this tutorial is for a program that counts how many unique items are in an input list of integers. For example, the input list of integers 1, 1, -2, 4, -2, 4, 3 has 4 unique items. However, the code has a bug that we'll need to fix. For every project in EEx281, you should start by editing the makefile. A brand new makefile will have a few things that should always be resolved when beginning a new project. Open the makefile in an editing window. So we're going to use that double-click method. There we go. The first thing that should be updated is your unique name. So my unique name is HardyEM. Then the second thing to be changed is the executable. Pick something that relates to the project. So if the project was, for example, P3 dancing all around, and you needed to formulate a dance routine, dance would be a good executable name. We will use tutorial for this guide. Okay, finally, you might need to update identifier. For projects, we usually set them for you, but for anything else, you should set them yourself. For the tutorial project, we're going to make it this string here. It's tutorial spelled with numbers. If you see something like EEx0281, EEx0281, etc., that's usually a sign that you need to replace the identifier, and that's what we have here. So I'm going to replace it. I'm just going to copy paste this identifier. Copy and paste. Cool. You may find later in the course that you have test files that depend on certain other source files. We won't cover the scenario here, but the bottom of the makefile has instructions. Once you made these changes to your makefile, you can save your changes by placing your cursor inside the editing window and pressing Ctrl plus S. Note here, that doesn't work on macOS. On macOS, it's Command plus S. Doing so will save the file in the currently open editing window. Now that the makefile is complete, we can build the code using make commands. And I'm going to click out of this notification here. We can run the command make debug. We can also do just make. And this will build an executable named tutorial_debug. Because make debug compiles our code with the -G3 flag, you can see that right here. This executable is built with maximum debug information enabled, and it makes breakpoints work. If we don't want the debug information, we can instead build with make release. This executable will run faster, but it won't be usable for debugging. When debugging, it is imperative that you use the debug executable. The debug executable will always end in _debug. Only the debug executable includes breakpoints. If all goes well, the tutorial debug executable and tutorial.o should appear in your file explorer interface as shown below. So we can see that tutorial.o and tutorial_debug. To delete these files, we can run make clean, and they disappear. Okay, now let's run the program. So compile again. I'm just going to use make. There are 4 input files. Each input file has the correct output and its file name. For example, the program should produce an output of 3 when given unique-3.txt as input. You can view the contents of an input file by opening the input file in VS Code. The program can be run from a terminal using the command /tutorial-debug <unique-3.txt. So we're going to go ahead and run that. So in the above command, <unique-3.txt is an example of input redirection. Note that line 16 of tutorial.cpp reads from cin, or standard input, and stores the value in a variable a. Cin is normally connected to a standard input device, such as a keyboard. However, by using input redirection, we can instead connect cin to the contents of a file. In this case, we connect cin to the contents of the file unique-3.txt. When we run our program using the command above, our program receives input from the file unique-3.txt as if we had manually typed the contents of unique-3.txt ourselves using a keyboard. For this test case, we expect an output of 3. However, the program gives us an output of 2. If we use the other input files, we find the program produces the wrong output in all cases except when given unique-0.txt as an input. So if we run, let's say, unique-1 gives 0, unique-5 gives 4, and unique-0 gives 0. So only unique-0 is giving us the right output. Interestingly, the program produces an output that is 1 less than the expected output in all cases except when given unique-0.txt as input. We could just add 1 to whatever output we receive, but we can do some debugging to identify where the problem originates. So here's where we can do some debugging with VS Code. This section pertains to using the visual debugger and does not relate to regularly compiling or running your code. If you prefer to analyze print statements, you may never need to use the visual debugger. However, relying solely on print statements for debugging is not recommended. Really, when I was a student in this class, I used the visual debugger all the time. It saves me a ton of headaches. You can try to write as perfect code as you can, but at the end of the day, you're always going to produce bugs at some point. And while print statements have their place, even in professional environments, using the visual debugger can be a great help. So we're going to click the icon in the sidebar on the left that resembles a bug crawling over a play button. This action will bring up the debugging menu, which should resemble the picture below. It does. Unfortunately, we use different debuggers depending on the system, and they are configured differently. Click one of the following links to jump to the configuration for your system. Here's where we're going to split off the video. So there's going to be a macOS video and a Linux video. Once we're done setting up launch.json, we'll come back and join together again.